So welcome everybody to this month's Augmented Society Network get-together. We meet every month except for August because we're going to have a break and enjoy the wonderfully hot weather that we're all experiencing, or most of us. The Augmented Society is a fellows network. It's part of the Royal Society of Arts, Manufacture and Commerce, or Commerce and Manufacture. I always get that round the wrong way. That organisation has a footprint across the globe. There are 30,000 fellows, mainly in the UK, actually. But it is something that if you are interested, you can look into if you're in the States or anywhere in the world. I will introduce you to Julie and myself. The Augmented Society meets to discuss the impact of technology on society and vice versa. We have themes that we discuss on a monthly basis. We also work on projects as well. And some of the people that are here today are involved in our creativity project. So if you made it to the website to see this session, you might be interested in looking at the creativity project as well. We host sessions on that regularly too. But again, we'll put links into the chat as we go through. So Julie and I are the founders of the Augmented Society Network. Julie is based in the UK. I am based here in America, in Las Vegas, actually, which is a very interesting and incredibly not really understood place, actually, but I'll leave you to decide whether you come or not. So Julie is a phenomenal person. She has a BA Honours in Visual Performing Arts. She's got a master's degree. She's published. And I'm very lucky that we work together on the Augmented Society Network. I am a technologist and practicing artist. I run a slow fashion company here in Las Vegas. I also worked in artificial intelligence in the UK and was the project lead on the first health chatbot in the UK with IBM. Today's session is about artificial intelligence, and I'm going to start with a presentation, but really we like to discuss what the topic is and what it involves. But I wanted to kind of get us going with some things to think about. So I am going to run a presentation. There are two videos. One video is just under 2 minutes. Another video is nearly 8 minutes. So I will start that video. It's absolutely fascinating in terms of artificial intelligence in the military, but we may not run it all. We'll see how you get on. If you're bored, just say so in the chat and we'll move on. Also, if you want the presentation, if you can drop us your email, or better, subscribe to our newsletter, and we're very, very happy to share that with you. So I'm going to set to on this presentation. Now, it's generally about generative AI, but I wanted to just go back in time a little bit to get a good feeling about just how rapidly this has all grown and why things are, to my mind, getting a little bit out of control. Now, there is also a huge amount of interest and publicity currently. So I've concentrated a slide just on some of the developments of this year, but to get a feeling of where we've come from and what questions we're going to be answering. I'm just going to go back to a hero of ours, mine and Julie's, and I'm sure yours as well. And this is Alan Turing. The Turing Institute is at the British Library if you fancy popping in and you are in London. It is a fascinating place to go. And they also give talks, which I've been to as well. It's just a fantastic institution. But it's just incredible as well that we go from someone who was absolutely vilified to then finding in 2019 that Alan Turing is on a £50 note. This also gives us a clue as to how far and how acceptable and how different our society is today from back when Alan was doing his work. Now, one of the first questions he asked was, can machines think? And that was something that began some of the wider discussions, although we've been talking about and being involved in artificial intelligence for much longer. It didn't get a name really until 1955. So I wanted to just go through some of the milestones, but I don't want to concentrate on all of them. But some initial thinking goes back to the inventor Blaise Pascal, for example, in 1642. The first mechanical calculating machine was built by the French mathematician, and there were other calculating machines, including things that we now might refer to, for example, as the digital Turk, for example, a chess-playing automaton. So we've been interested in assimilating ourselves for a very, very long time. And back to the Greek and the other philosophers, for example, we have this fascination about creating our likeness. And this is where that idea that artificial intelligence should be like us kind of comes from. I think it would be far more interesting if we didn't try to replicate ourselves and actually looked at artificial intelligence in a different light and looked at ways in which other problems could be solved. However, I'm not in charge and never will be. So just moving on, you can see Alan Turing there and the Turing test in 1950. ELIZA, which I'll talk about very briefly in a couple of slides to come, as one of, sort of considered as one of the very first interactive chatbots. It's very different to the kind of chatbots that we have now, but is flagged on the history of artificial intelligence as a landmark. My most favorite artificial intelligence history surrounds DeepMind or Deep Blue, winning at the American competition Jeopardy, for example, and also the challenge with Lee Sedol with the game Go. So IBM have been involved in this for a very long time. Now, this timeline stops in 2018, and clearly much more has happened in the meantime, but I wanted to fast forward to the timeline for 2023. And this is where we are currently now. And I wanted to highlight this as part of the reason why we're all kind of here today and why there is an explosion of interest in artificial intelligence and the possibilities that it holds. Now, clearly, Ismail's here, I'm here, Julie's here, Rashida's here. There's other people here that have been interested in artificial intelligence for a very long time. But let's have a look at some of the things that have happened just this year that to me are hugely concerning and have brought us to the point where we all very much need to be involved. Now, you can probably read some of those things for yourself. I've highlighted in red the things that I think are alarming and that we can talk about later in the session. On the 13th of March, for example, the researchers at Stanford trained Meta's open source model using ChatGPT. It was taken down after they noted that the AI seemed to hallucinate a lot, and it began to make them think about just how safe this was going to be. And equally later on, ChatGPT, for example, that's going to be available via your web browser. So there is a democratization of AI underway in all of these landmarks or milestones. You are gradually seeing AI come from behind a corporate platform to a paid platform to a web browser experience. So those are the things that I think are very interesting. And let's have a look at some of the other stuff. So March the 14th, for example, ChatGPT 4 saw significant improvements. The release raised concerns in the community that we may have inadvertently achieved artificial general intelligence. Wow, this is not in any one person's hands. It's not in the government's hands. Whose hands is this in? March the 16th, Microsoft introduced Copilot. I've just come back from the Collision conference in Toronto. Copilot is huge. And it is a way of helping us, people like you and me, with our daily work. So we're beginning to see that. We're all using it now. Perhaps you're not aware, but we are. So I'm going to move forward. March the 30th. I'm sure you'll know some developers, very, very clever people who write the code for the software that we all use. Developers have begun to see, using GitHub, which for developers, you'll know what that is, that Auto GPT is writing and improving its own code. Now that gives an indication of how AI can be used to self-improve. That's the only reason I'm highlighting that. I'm not going to read through all of these, but you can see, if you think about the previous timeline and just the first 5 months of 2023, the exponential impact of AI and its availability. That's what we're here to discuss today. So I wanted to just have a look at some of the things that people who are involved in the industry are saying. Mustafa Suleiman is talking here about who will actually dominate AI. And we do need to talk about the country element of this. America, China, the UK, and so on. The country that establishes or generates the most effective AI applications and tools, it is said, will then lead in all sorts of other applications, including warfare, for example, political influence, and so on. I just wanted then, we'll come back to what other people are saying as well, but I just thought we should have a quick look at some of the applications that are in use today. Adam Altman and his quote here: "In 10 years, I think we will have chatbots that work as an expert in any domain you like. So you will be able to ask an expert doctor, an expert teacher, a lawyer, whatever you need, and have those systems accomplish those things for you." On the left-hand side there, I've just put a screenshot from Eliza. The two differences in these, obviously in terms of years, but in terms of the application itself, is the difference between deterministic and scholastic methodology. Stochastic requires a more randomized approach to bringing back content than deterministic, which follows very specific patterns and routes to bring back responses, for example. So Eliza is considered a landmark, but there are people who say, well, yeah, but it is not comparable to where we are now in any sense. More discussion about that, I guess, as we go through. Research, I think this is one of the most fascinating and probably one of the better known areas that AI is being used for here. In this example, the glioblastoma or glioblastoma, depending on how you want to say it, is detected by the AI in the same way that the doctor detects and predicts the tumor to appear. The use of AI in medical applications is quite phenomenal. And again, many organizations using AI in this way. The application of AI in warfare. Now, I'm going to start this video, but we may move on. But I think it's just worth looking at just to see how involved AI is in warfare.
AIP unleashes the power of large language models and cutting-edge AI for defense and military organizations. LLMs and algorithms must be controlled in this highly regulated and sensitive context to ensure that they are used in a legal and ethical way. AIP's capabilities make the use of LLMs and AI possible in the military context through three core pillars. First, AIP deploys LLMs and AI across any network, from classified networks to devices on the tactical edge. AIP connects highly sensitive and classified intelligence data to create a real-time representation of your environment. Second, AIP's security features let you define what LLMs and AI can and cannot see, and what they can and cannot do, with safe AI and handoff functions. Third, AIP brings industry-leading guardrails to control, govern, and trust in the AI. As operators and AI take action in platform, AIP generates a secure digital record of operations. These capabilities are crucial for mitigating significant legal, regulatory, and ethical risks posed by LLMs and AI in sensitive and classified settings. In this demo, we'll explore how AIP powers responsible, effective, and compliant AI advantage. We start with a military operator responsible for monitoring activity within Eastern Europe. They've just received an alert that military equipment is amassed in a field 30 kilometers from friendly forces. AIP leverages large language models to allow operators to quickly ask questions. Show me more details. They ask what enemy units are in the region and leverage AI to build out a likely unit formation. What enemy military unit is in the region? Our operator requests additional imagery to build a more complete picture of the potential enemy equipment on the ground. Task new imagery for this location at a resolution of 1 meter or higher. AIP surfaces the option to deploy a nearby drone to collect video. Task the MQ-9 to capture video of this location. The footage confirms a potential threat. The drone footage shows an enemy T-80 main battle tank. Generate 3 courses of action to target this enemy equipment. The operator uses AIP to generate 3 possible courses of action to target this enemy equipment. Next, they use AIP to automatically send these options up the chain of command. Send these 3 options to my commander for review. Let's look under the hood. As our operator poses questions, the LLM is traversing a data foundation of real-time information, integrated from across public and classified sources. Data is automatically tagged and protected by classification markings, and AIP
So I'm going to stop there, but I think you'll get the idea of what's going on there. And the weight put on trust, ways of linking control and command, and the way that that is used in the first instance to gain trust just from yourself in terms of the way that this sort of software is used. It's absolutely incredible, and to me, astonishingly scary. I haven't included anything on war bots or anything else, but I've just got those few examples. I just wanted to move on to deep fakes and the application of those in our media currently. This is an absolute favourite of mine, but it also caused quite a lot of controversy at Midjourney. Seeing the Pope in Balenciaga, for example, Donald Trump's fake arrest. These are the kinds of deepfakes and generative applications that I think are most likely to interrupt our world and have already. I wanted to show you another video. It's much quicker, but this is from a friend of mine's company in Los Angeles. They work on translating films using artificial intelligence. Now, this video is only 2 minutes long, and it's again fascinating to watch. So I'll play the full video.
Your names are so long-winded. It's a miracle you ever get to fighting at all.
C'est amusant aussi. Non, au contraire. C'est tragique. Avez-vous réponse à ça? Absolument.
You have髪もちゃんと
Wo sind Sie? Was?
Mit einigen der bekanntesten und kriminellsten Familien in dieser Stadt in Verbindung bringt und wo lässt sie ihn waschen?
Peut-être que c'était un de ces lève-tôt qui font leur bagage le matin. Ou même peut-être qu'ils n'avaient pas d'amis.
寂しいよ。現状で何かいるものがあったら。
So that's just one company in Los Angeles working with artificial intelligence there. And I know that most of us will be aware of what's going on with the Writers Guild and actors, particularly here on the West Coast. Part of the strike is involving the way in which artificial intelligence is being used to replace actors and to replace not the famous actors necessarily, but the extras as well. I won't go into detail there because I'm sure everyone's read about this, but there is also a lot of comment. And I think what's interesting here is that when we come on to the next slide, Susan Sarandon is basically saying that there wasn't a problem to fix here and that AI should be used to fix actual problems. We'll come on to that in a second. But here, Brian Cox saying that this needs to be nipped in the bud. I think it's way beyond the bud at the moment, but this is causing a huge interruption and disturbance in this industry. And I feel, even though I was involved in the IT revolution, the information revolution, this feels to me very much like the next revolution, where we see much more disturbance, much more of an issue for all of us. And that will be something clearly that we'll talk about. But I was fascinated by Susan Sarandon saying this isn't the problem. This is not something AI should be being used for. This is about profit. This is about releasing films without the need for new actors, without the need for translators. It wipes out a whole swath of costs in the entertainment industry. I've just come back from the Collision conference in Toronto and was lucky enough to be sitting behind the scenes listening to Geoffrey Hinton's interview in Toronto, and it was absolutely fantastic. And I picked out some of the things, the big things that he was saying. Now, again, this whole interview is online if you want to find it. I'm not going to read everything that he said, but the risk here, the thing that he was reiterating was the extinction of humankind, when artificial intelligence and its aim will see us as in the way, see us as a problem. If you give an artificial intelligence the command to cut down trees, for example, and it comes across a city, will it go through the city, destroying the city to get to the distant trees? There was an open letter, which again you can find online, and it was signed by a number of very high profile people in the industry currently. Again, that's something that's very interesting to look at. Brian, I've forgotten his name. What's his name? Bostock. I've completely forgotten his name. Anyway, this is a Nick Bostrom. I do apologise for that. His book Superintelligence is absolutely fascinating. If you can get your hands on that, please have a look at that, because that will help you to get into that mindset as well of being able to ask questions. And he again is raising the issue of AI having incompatible goals with humans. Geoffrey Hinton again saying basically that there are way too many people working on AI and way too few working on making it safe and understanding the impact of it on society and on us today. So I now get to some of the questions that we think are important, but I now want to just open to everyone here to either respond to the presentation or to air your concerns or interests in this topic. So I'm going to throw it open now and ask, what is the role of this kind of technology for us in society today?
Can I just introduce Ismail? He posted something today, absolutely fascinating, on Twitter about AI, that if you could just do a quick summary of it. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Only slightly. Hello. My name is Ismail. I consult on AI ethics and research governance. I've been doing this for just over 3 years. I feel like that needs to be said in this room. We have a lot of expertise, far longer than mine. The article that I was interviewed for, written by Torchbox, by Andy Gordon from Torchbox. He's a fellow of the RSA as well. I basically introduce 3 types of audiences we need to involve in the AI life cycle. So let's take the AI life cycle from the design of a new AI tool to its development, which is where we usually talk about machine learning, to its deployment. So what is it actually used for? How is it deployed? And I suggest that there are 3 parties we should involve. The first one might be the most controversial, involve people from across the organization, so not just your engineers and computer scientists, data scientists, and mathematicians, but why not bring in your marketing team, your HR team, your finance team, and have a bit more of a conversation and learn from one another. The other group is the experts in the area where you're applying an AI tool to. So if you are creating a text-to-image generative AI tool, why not bring in artists to see what they would feed into this new tool? Or if you're creating a text-to-text generative AI tool such as ChatGPT, why not consider bringing in the people where you expect it to be applied to? If people are going to start writing novels with ChatGPT, why not bring novelists into the conversation? That's just a little example. And the third group being, let me try and remember what I said. The end users, so the people who are going to be using it at the end of the day, how can they be brought into the conversation throughout the AI lifecycle to ensure that what is created is useful to them, meets the problems that they have identified and can define, and also builds trust. So to avoid creating a tool that is later said to be completely lacking in trustworthiness and not worth anyone's time, why not bring the public into the conversation so that you can mitigate against that risk down the line? In a nutshell, that's what that article was about. Thank you, Julie.
My pleasure. I enjoyed reading it. I thought it was really good.
Thank you for reading.
Anyone else, any thoughts, comments you'd like to share?
I have a comment. I'm Michelle Graves. I'm a fine artist, but I also teach at an advertising school. It's like just a 1-year program to basically a fast track to getting a job at an ad agency. And what the students there do is make mock campaigns for branding. And in those campaigns, there's executions, meaning activations, like what can this brand that's been around for a long time do to like update how they live in society or how they're viewed as part of like, common consumer, culture. The school owner and I took a Midjourney class over the summer, like the first cohort taught by Nick St. Pierre, who's really big on Twitter. I'm just now kind of learning about him since I've taken the class. But we're teaching the students how to use Midjourney to develop these images that are, where I teach Photoshop, Illustrator Design, all those, After Effects, those types of programs, Adobe programs. But having access to Midjourney gives us the capability of generating these images of an idea that doesn't exist yet. I don't know if I can share my screen or not, but I have something pulled up. Am I able to share my screen?
One sec.
Okay. This is just a really easy example of Bumble, or not. So Bumble is a dating app, but they're updating it for calling it Bumble Gold. So Bumble for the older generation of single people. This is one of the executions where it's the Bumble Mobile, a giant gold B-shaped truck equipped with multiple ways of interacting with available singles. So, but this was generated with Midjourney. So I think like, as far as, what you're saying, like what can I forget the first bullet point on there, but something to do with like, how can, what are we doing with it? Like, this is something that our school is trying to implement like immediately. Is that because it's a really great way to generate ideas, and then potentially make image prototypes of these situations. So this one I think is a really good example because it's super ornate. This doesn't exist in the world yet, but it could. And then another one.
Yeah, go ahead. You can do it.
Oh yes, there's just like, these were also generated, but super simple, but really nice looking bouquets of flowers. And then another one of a cruise ship made out of gold. And then, but there's also our part of it too, where we have to composite logos and things like that in the imagery. So I just wanted to show these as examples for what artists are using right now that have little knowledge of like the actual AI side of things, but we just have the fundamental knowledge of generating prompts, or like coming up with a language of the prompts and practicing that, and then regenerating using the things that we learned in the Midjourney course with Nick St. Pierre, but just as an example of what is being done right now. Oh, am I sharing here? Did I not share my screen?
No, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And we're dying to see it. So,
There you go.
my goodness.
Wow.
So this is the truck, the B truck. So, truck equipped with the multiple ways of interact with available singles. This is the bouquet of flowers. And then this is the cruise ship, the gold plated cruise ship. And then the student superimposed the logo on there. So, as I was, taking the class and also teaching the students, everybody was kind of nervous. Last quarter, everybody was a little bit nervous, which the quarter started in February. I'm sorry. Writers were nervous, copywriters are nervous. They're like, ChatGPT is going to take over my job. Directors were nervous. They're like, artificial intelligence, images are going to be generated for me. But I disagree, because we still need to tell the computer what to do. ChatGPT, we still need to give it a prompt. For imagery, we still need to give it a prompt, and we still have to figure out the correct prompt and language and adjectives and things like that to describe what we want to bring up. And then it's up to us to like choose an image and regenerate and tweak the adjectives to make an image that we want to turn out. And then it's all kind of it's magical in a way where we don't know what we're going to get. And then sometimes they're, like when people are in it, the hands are all, they're like 4 arms or, 3 fingers, or as I noticed in that Pope picture that he only had 3 fingers. So it's fun. I'm trying to teach them that it's fun in a way. It's also, I understand that the military intelligence can be dangerous. And Mitchell, I think you mentioned in the comments that you noticed that the directory for to target that tank, there was no suggestion of conversation or anything like that involved in that, which that I think is scary. But as far as like fine art or visual art, an art point of view, I think we can have a lot of really interesting imagery come out of it if it's, and just like anything, if it's used in an appropriate way. Okay, so I'll stop sharing.
Thank you. That's fascinating. I love the artwork as well.
Yeah, I was really surprised, and sure.
So anyone else want to? It's interesting what you say, Michelle, about being used in the right way. I think that's where partly the issue lies on the wider scale. And it's fascinating to see what your students are doing. Do you discuss ethics and copyright and all those things with them? I'm sure you do, but how is that covered?
Well, we don't encourage students to use ChatGPT at all. That's we don't use that. But Midjourney, yes. And then we're encouraging the writers to collaborate with the art directors to because we need that language to give to give Midjourney the prompt. So we're trying to, it's not only I'm trying to help the students really continue to collaborate together as language people and as visual people. But we're just we're not bringing ChatGPT into the situation at all. I mean, and honestly, another comment on that is that I was, applying to a grant recently, and I told my students this, and I typed in, grant proposal for a sculpture in the desert, and it came back with a budget, bullet points, all these different things, but it was still generic enough that I spent another 3 hours rewriting what it gave me. But as far as the structure of what I needed to write for the grant, it was super helpful to have that kind of as an outline. And that's what I told them too, is that, it's still generic. It's still going to be generic enough that we still have to go, and even if somebody uses it, we still have to go back and make it exactly what we need. Mm-hmm. So as far as that goes, and I think ChatGPT, that was kind of like this hot topic, last quarter, but people weren't really talking about it too much, at the beginning of this quarter. So it's just moving so fast that it's, who knows what's going to happen next.
Jim, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I'd love to say I'm a production designer, art director in film, and I agree. I think what Ishmael was saying about the whole process of involving the examination of AI actually mimics the process of commercial art and ensemble art. I come out of theater design, and when you're setting context for action, there's a lot of considerations. There's psychological context, there's physical context, there's a whole lot of things that AI at this point doesn't really take into consideration. If you want a generic living room for a scene or something like that, it's just going to get a bunch of pictures and sort of give you a pastiche. But a lot of the stuff for the deep analysis is that for really, really powerful dramatic imagery is really a question of trying to figure out how the human brain works and how you react to certain environments and imagery. And so to Michelle's point, I think it's great to have a lot of options and just sort of find out what direction you want to go. To the military thing, which I think is interesting, a part of the AI analysis was sort of trying to funnel things up the chain of command. And so I would assume that the decision for diplomacy would be up the chain of command and not something that the AI would necessarily make.
You'd hope so.
or necessarily even have to consider. It would be looking at military options, and then somewhere up the chain of command, a general would say, well, perhaps we should exercise some diplomacy here before we deploy the drone. Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's really an interesting field, and but I designed a film a couple of years ago called Midnight Sky, and we were trying to design a spaceship that was realistic, and so we employed a lot of topological optimization, or mimicked it, tried to look like it was topologically optimized. But I think there's a lot of similarities there too, where it's all about setting the parameters and being able to look at what you're trying to represent, the design to be versus what it actually is. And this is just taking it to another level, which is really interesting.
So do you think for the actors currently, what's their future?
For actors, I think it's one thing that is interesting is I've worked in both animation and in live action films over the past 3 or 4 years, and every studio says, do not use AI. They're afraid they're scared to death of it legally, because they don't know what the parameters are and if they're going to get sued. And these lawsuits can be really expensive for them, and they affect profit. So right now there's a real resistance to using AI at all in any way, shape, or form. Even in preparatory work where you're doing speculations of could be this, they just don't want to expose themselves. And it's the same thing with likeness. With physical likeness, if when you're looking at the look, one thing that we could look at in animation is that drawing characters is a little bit like AI. An animator basically looks at human behavior, tries to capture the essence of it, and create a character that everybody can relate to. And that's pretty much AI, right?
Yeah.
But it's not the artificial part's not there. It's the actual intelligence. It's the observation of life itself and the creation of things from life. And what we're trying to do is get a little machine assist in that, and it's sort of ethically and legally a real frontier.
When we were creating the chatbot back in the UK in 2015, the legal input on that project was as big as any content creation. Yeah. And one of the issues that we would continually come up against is where someone takes something literally. And as an example of that, there was an incident where a lorry driver followed a sat-nav into a lake and said, well, it's told me to go that way. You probably remember some of those articles. Mm-hmm. And the legal liability of that was really very interesting. And whilst Ismail, you'll be familiar with this, wanting a really great user experience and having everything to be smooth and as frictionless as possible, the number of interstitials that we had in terms of legal liability just ruined it. Mm-hmm. With, you can use this, but A, B, C, D, it was upsetting to have one's interface interfered with in that way. But those are the things that are being reflected equally in the art world as well. And I know artists are upset with some of the content that's being used and being reused, for example. And what Brian Cox was saying as well was that nothing would be new ever again. What's people's thinking on that?
Well, I mean, I know my thinking on that, which is it's sort of bullshit, but
Oh, great. Yeah.
I mean, which is, I mean, there's nothing original going on anyway. You look at, we all tell the same old stories over and over again, and so what's the difference? It's what's interesting is you just have more often opportunities to refine it, because what we're ultimately what we're doing in dramatic art is at least is we're creating dreams for our culture. They're unfettered dreams, and everybody gets access to things that they can relate to, and tries to sort of make sense out of the whole process of life. It's sort of crazy that to think that there's a whole lot that's new out there. But what's new is that we have this very complicated environment that we live in, and we have a whole lot of people that we have to live with. So I think the whole purpose of art is to create beauty and things that allow us to get to know each other better and figure out how we're going to live together and have a good life and not kill each other.
Yeah, just those small things. Anyone
But as
else
far as
want-
Brian Cox and the actors go, I mean, the actors are, that's what they're all about, is they reflect that part of the brain and that activity, which is all about projection. Their skill in their craft is about creating characters, and they do feel threatened when a machine comes in and helps them out. But that's why you'll never see an animated film nominated for Best Picture. The actors dominate the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, and they don't want a picture that doesn't have actors in it be a Best Picture.
Yeah.
Anyone who hasn't said
Yeah.
anything? We are running out of time.
Okay, so I actually have 3 different thoughts. Okay, in the chat I put a link to it was to a Twitter post, but it's basically these people used AI to create a South Park video, and the subject of the South Park video was about using AI to create video content. And it's really it's only a few minutes, but it's pretty cool. And then it's kind of interesting when thinking about using AI on different levels, like people probably like us, but certainly like me, I use it all the time to save time, or to do some things that I'm not capable of using it to. I create graphics or photos. I use it to outline ideas. I use it to fill in content, which I then, but in all those things, I then need to edit what it's done, but primarily due to current limitations in its capabilities, which may go away. But that's kind of what Michelle brought up, is that certainly now you can't rely on AI to produce high level content in any of these areas, but it can assist you. And then but on a different level, the elites and leaders of business and most likely government and military are looking to use it, for their advantage without any particular concern for anyone else's welfare, and they're thinking that they're going to be in charge, so they're going to get the benefits, and that maybe other people, like the rest of the world, is going to have to pay the price, but they're going to do much better. And I think that's a real concern for all of us, and that's part of the concern behind the actors. And then, there's just all these risks out of so many different areas. There's the risks that the machines end up being able to outsmart all of us, and we just have no idea. They're definitely getting better and better. There's the risks that we've seen many examples where the biases built into their models end up resulting in bad answers that then get blindly followed by people, and that's to the detriment of many or all of us. Okay, and then there's the risk of stealing other people's IP. Okay, and somebody who puts a lot of stuff on the web, it's like, I know that anything I put on the web is going to be pulled out by these AI engines, and somebody's going to be able to use them, and I'm not even going to be mentioned. All this stuff that I put into it, it's just like it's now free. So it's like, how do you protect that? So those are 3 very different thoughts that I had.
Also, to add with AI, the conversations around race and gender and those biases as well.
Yeah.
And that's yeah, there are lots of, you know, the places like in Africa, for example, they're now working to generate their own AI that actually is sympathetic to them, their culture, their needs, and their identity. And I think that's what you're going to find will start to happen.
Well, we saw, as you bring that up, like when Apple first came out with their facial recognition, okay, which is, AI based, they did it on Caucasian, their test database was Caucasians. And so like there are a lot of people who it didn't work for the first 6 months it was out because of that bias that was built in.
I just mentioned the Algorithmic Justice League there. As a group who are working very hard in that area. Any other comments? We are reaching the end of our session.
I was sorry, I'm on my really old laptop, so you probably can't see me, but there's just a couple of things that I wanted to comment on. I'm a film editor, I do documentary, and I was on an amazing series of panel talks. I just put it in the chat as well on Tuesday, which is talking a lot about it's digital Hollywood, so it's talking a lot about what you were talking about, Jim. One thing they were actually talking about, it seems to me that brands are actually going to drive a lot of this, as opposed to creatives in sort of inverted commas. But what they were actually talking about in one of those talks was that even dead actors' estates are actually being approached by brands now to then license kind of IP. So, it's the Audrey Hepburn advert, things like that people have been looking at. But one of the people that was speaking on that was actually talking about how Hollywood is actually, and I think more broadly, going to actually have to license sort of sets of IP and sets of data sets in order to kind of stay ahead of this. And some people are saying that's kind of actually, the horse is out of the stable by that point. But the only way that you can actually control this is by controlling data sets. And to your point as well, Julie, I did a documentary for The Economist recently on bias in data sets, and it's all about the transparency and how you curate a data set that is going to be, the way to tackle this, I think.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. Thanks, Kate. Lots of issues there. And I think it's still true to say that it was a group of 6 or 8 white men at Stanford who came up with the structure on which we index everything. Now, I know there's only, certain ways, animal, vegetable, mineral, that the world can be explained, but I would absolutely love to redo all of that. Not me personally, but that we revisit all of the ways in which things are described, to expose colonialism, expose bias, expose all of that. Now, I know I really don't think that's going to happen, but things like ImageNet, for example, are really big examples of where that bias is built in and the way that the human image is rendered and used today. On that note, we're going to draw to a close. Thank you ever so much to everyone who came. Julie and I are taking August off because we traditionally do that, and we will be writing
but we've got so much to do on another project.
We've got loads of other stuff to do, haven't we? So we're busy on that, but we'll be back in September. We're working on climate change, global warming, new ways to recenter that conversation without the weight and bias that's already attached to those words. So we're writing that session as we speak, and that will be.
Didn't Marjorie Taylor Greene already prove that there is no climate change?
Have you seen? Well, no, I'm not going. Yeah, well, I just wouldn't be nice if she didn't exist. But anyway, there you go. Yes, we're all fine now, Mitch. Everything is cool. Yeah.
Thank you.
So Julie and I won't need to do that, but do join us again. Keep an eye on the Augmented Society Network website. If you want to subscribe, please do, because we'll put out content that will be sucked into some AI somewhere along with all of Mitch's content as well. So, I mean, the future looks great, bearing in mind it's us that's creating that content. And I wish everyone a wonderful and very hot summer, if it is hot where you are. We'll be back in September. For those artists who are working on our creativity project, our next session is after this. It's just a drop-in, so you don't have to be there. And we will look forward to seeing you all again very soon. And thank you very much indeed.
Always wonderful to meet lots of new people. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.